Hi Factoryites, we've been absolutely inundated with a request for further information on the wireless spectrum and block allocation here in Australia. Who better to get that information to us than Jeff number 1 from Janes? Jeff?
I think last time we talked about the block structure, but we didn't have detail about how the blocks would be allocated on a national basis. So work has been progressing on that. The block structure is definitely in and will definitely go ahead, as in the 5 blocks in blocks of 6 channels that we spoke about last time. What's been progressing is the work on the allocation of those blocks around the country. They work up through planning stages, when it starts with what they call Category C, which is a general consensus, and eventually moves up until once it gets to the point where they give them a Category A, which means that a television licence area plan's been issued, and then that's pretty much locked in. So depending on the location you're in currently, some are in A, some are still down in C. They're in different levels of assurity, I guess you'd call it. So I just happen to have a PowerPoint here that I prepared earlier. If you'd turned up to our one at the NTech Roadshow, you would have seen this.
It's a bit disappointing you didn't see me in the crowd, however.
It was a small crowd, I'm sure I would have noticed you. Anyway, small detail here, I realise probably a bit hard to see, but this gives you a snapshot of, for example, Brisbane, the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast. And the way it works here is for Brisbane, we've got C for current, P for proposed. So this is how it'll be stacked post 2015 when the restack is complete. So Brisbane will be stacked up, all of its primary broadcasters will be in Block A. Block A is the VHF block, remember, so as far as we're concerned for wireless mics, we really don't care about Block A. Our interest starts in B, C, D and E, which are the UHF blocks. So Brisbane will be all Block A. This was part of the statement by the Minister when they said to adopt the block plan, is what they said, that all the major capitals had to use Block A as their primary broadcast services. Now, most already did for the commercials, like in Melbourne and Sydney, channels 7, 9 and 10 were all VHF, but you tended to have a couple of UHF allocations, SBS and community television. During the restructure, those UHFs have to fold back down to VHF as well. So this helps clear some UHF spectrum, which is a good thing for us. So as I was saying before, once the restack's complete, Brisbane will be primarily Block A only. And so C, D and E will be open. A lot of open spectrum there. However, it gets complex once you start going up the coast to the Sunshine Coast and down to the Gold Coast, because there they need to start using some of these other UHF blocks. And so you'll see they're scattered around. The Gold Coast will be using D, the Sunshine Coast C, etc, etc.
So what do those frequencies encompass? What's the bottom of B? Where do we sit there? Is that 5?
B is channel 28, so 526.
And the
so
top of
there, you see there's Block B, 526 to 568, 568 to 610, 610 to 652, 652 to 694, which is the top of the available spectrum. If I step through a few others, Sydney will be Block A primarily, and then the 2 infill transmitters that we have at King's Cross and North Head will be on Block B. So by this chart, Block C, D and E will be open. However, I know that there's talk of some additional infill transmitters being sited for Sydney they want to do as part of the changeover, so possibly Block C will also be taken once those go in. But still that should leave 2 blocks at least, possibly D or E, available for wireless mics.
Okay, and where would be the worst region currently looking at? And of course, nothing is set in concrete yet, but where does it look like it's going to be the toughest geographically? The
toughest will be the same traditional trouble spots we've always had, being the Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Central Coast, New South Wales. Because of the geography of those regions, they need lots of infill transmitters to fill in black spots, and where that means that each infill uses a block. So I've got another chart where you can sort of see the whole layout, which maybe we'll just fast forward to that. Just quickly, Melbourne, Adelaide and Perth, they basically have the same allocation. Because those regions are all predominantly flat, you can cover most of those with one transmitter site. And so these are all currently showing as Block A only. So, particularly Perth, where it's very flat, there should be plenty of open spectrum there for wireless mics. So it's actually looking really good. in some areas. So what it's going to work out to is, depending on where your kit currently operates, it could be really good news or it could be really bad news. You know, if you've got a piece of kit that tunes over a certain range and that happens to be an open block, then great, you're laughing. If that happens to be where a solid block is allocated on top of you, then maybe not so much.
Okay. Advice for production companies that tour Australia?
Let me go here and show you. So where we're heading is we're going to go down a similar path to where the US is already, in that it's going to be very difficult to find a common open block nationally. So if you're touring around the country, it's becoming highly likely that you're going to have to change frequencies as you tour. Or if you're lucky enough to have a piece of hardware that's got a wide enough tuning bandwidth to cover several blocks. But assuming you don't, you'll probably...
Let's talk about what is possible in shore. What do people buy in the shore range that does encompass the widest options of frequency?
It generally goes hand in hand with price point. You know, it's one of the things that you get for your money, is wider tuning bandwidth as you step up through the range. And so, of course, the top of the pile for us at the moment is Axient. And I think, the next slide here, which again is probably hard to see, but what I'm showing here is there's the 4 blocks of interest, being B, C, D and E, and these are the tuning ranges of the various product that we currently offer. So that big yellow band there is Axient. Right, so it tunes across all of them. It does 470 to 698 at the receiver, no problems. ULXD, which we were talking about the other day, and I see you've still got it and haven't even moved it off the table.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Covers these 2 ranges up here. So what we're trying to do with our newer product is get them structured so that they'll tune across multiple blocks. Because it's obviously a lot more advantageous to be able to step aside of a block if you have to, rather than a product that's stuck within one block, because if that block's allocated, then you're hemmed in and you've got nowhere to go.
And the green just above the UR, where we've got three banks.
That's UR.
Oh, that's
UR. The 3 different frequency bands you can get UR in. So if you're a UR owner touring around, you may need to go from, so that's J5E, which is currently the most popular band. You may need to drop down to H in some cities. So this is the chart, this is the format of the next issue of our spectrum chart, which I know you guys have used and handed out to customers in the past. Once this planning reaches the final level of maturity, we'll be updating our chart and making this information available for people.
When will we know finally when everything has been set and done?
The missing piece is finalisation of the work on these planning, and if I step up back to here, you'll see I've given you an indication per city of where the planning status is at for those. So you can see that several are already at A.
So A means that it's already set in concrete, not
now,
changing.
for the ones indicated, now for example I said before, I mean Sydney is A for their Block A allocation, C for the Block B allocation, and there's talk of potentially another block coming in. So it's not quite as clear as it may indicate. You know, I think we won't know for sure probably until the end of this calendar year. Then that's when all the final work's anticipated to be done.
Okay. Well, I think that's once again filled us in with everything that we need to know. Jeff, number 1 from Jans, thank you so much.
Thank you.
From Factory Sound TV, bye for now.